It was a hot day in June 2025. On June the 15th and 16th, people in southern Europe were angry. Thousands of people went into the streets. They lived in cities in Spain, Italy, and Portugal. They were not happy about too much tourism. In Barcelona, a city in Spain, many people marched. They held signs that said, "Too much tourism kills the city." They also used water pistols sometimes. It was a mix of anger and strange actions. About 600 people were in the main march in Barcelona. In other cities in Spain, like Palma in Mallorca, about 5,000 people protested. It was very hot, around 39 degrees Celsius. In Venice, Italy, a smaller group of people protested against new hotels. Protests also happened in other Spanish cities like Ibiza and Granada. In Italy, people marched in Genoa and Naples. In Portugal, there were protests in Lisbon. These actions happened on the same days in different countries. A group called SET helped to organize these days of action. SET is a name for Southern Europe against touristification. People have many problems because of tourism. One big problem is housing. Many homes are now used for tourists, like holiday rentals. This makes it difficult for local people to find a place to live. Rents are very expensive. People who have lived in these cities for a long time might lose their homes. Signs said, "Your Airbnb was my home." This showed how people felt. Tourism also makes cities very crowded. Streets, beaches, and public transport, like buses, can be full of visitors. This makes daily life hard for the people who live there. They feel like strangers in their own cities. Some people want tourism degrowth. This means they want fewer tourists, not more. This story is about the anger of the residents. It is about the people who live in cities like Barcelona, Venice, and Lisbon. It is about their fight to protect their homes and their cities. They want to find a way to have tourism that respects the people who live there. This book tells their story and the problems caused by too much tourism. 2. A Day of Anger. On June 15th and 16th, 2025, people in Southern Europe were very angry. Thousands of people went into the streets in many cities across Spain, Italy, and Portugal. They wanted to show how they felt about the problems caused by too many visitors. In Barcelona, hundreds of people walked together. They wore dark clothes. They carried signs. Signs said things like, "Your holiday is my problem," and "Too much tourism kills the city." Some people used water pistols. It was a hot day, and using water pistols showed their anger. Police thought about 600 people were in this march. In Mallorca, a big island in Spain, many more people protested. About 5,000 people walked in the city of Palma. It was very, very hot that day, almost 40 degrees Celsius. Still, thousands of people came out. They also carried signs. They wanted to live in their homes and not feel like tourists were taking over. In Italy, there were protests too. In Venice, a famous city on the water, a small group made a statement. About 30 local people stood together. They showed signs saying they did not want new hotels built. They felt their city was changing too much because of tourism. These protests were special because they happened in many places on the same days. A group called SET, a group working against too much tourism, helped organize these days of action. They wanted people from different cities and countries to show their anger together. The people protesting wanted leaders to listen to them. They asked for clear limits on the number of tourists. They said that the needs of the people who live there should be more important than tourism growth. They felt that tourism was changing their cities and making life difficult. This was a day to show their anger. 3. Homes, not hotels. For many people in the cities, the biggest problem was housing. Living there became very hard. This is because of tourism. Many homes are now used as apartments for tourists for a short time, like holiday rentals. Before, these were homes for local families. Now, these homes are for visitors. When homes become tourist apartments, there are fewer places for local people to live. This makes the rent very expensive. People cannot afford to pay the high prices. Some people worry they will have to leave their homes and find a place far away. Many residents shared their stories. One man, Andreu Martinez, said his rent went up a lot. His neighborhood changed. It had more shops for tourists, not the shops locals needed. In another city, Palma, a woman named Teresa Torres carried a sign that said, "We want to live in our own home." She said it was hard to live a normal life with so many visitors. Some young people on the islands said they feel like strangers on their own beaches because they hear only foreign languages. People who work in bars or as teachers also said their friends could not find homes they could pay for. The problem of tourist apartments was clear to see. People carried signs with strong messages. One sign said, "Your Airbnb was my home." This sign showed that the homes tourists stayed in were once places where local people lived and built their lives. Cities started to fight back. The city council in Barcelona made a big decision. They announced they will stop about 10,000 licenses for tourist apartments. This means many holiday rentals must close in the next few years. The Spanish government also took action. They told booking websites to remove many illegal holiday rentals that did not follow the rules. People are angry because they feel tourism is taking their homes away. They want the focus to be on homes for people who live in the city, not more places for tourists to stay. 4. The city is full. When many tourists come to cities, it creates problems for the people who live there. It puts a lot of pressure on the things the city needs to work well, like public services and infrastructure. For example, consider water supply. In places like the Canary Islands, there is not enough water for everyone when a large number of tourists visit. The people living on the islands need water for their homes and daily life. But the islands are small, and millions of visitors also use water for hotels, swimming pools, and other needs. This puts a big strain on the available water. Traffic is another major issue. In popular tourist areas, roads often become very crowded. Tourists use rental cars or buses to travel around. Local people also need to use the roads to go to work, school, or shopping. When the roads are full of tourist vehicles and buses, it is very hard for local people to move freely. Traffic jams can cause long delays and make getting around a daily struggle. Hospitals and healthcare services also face increased demand. When many people gather in one place, more people may need medical help. During peak tourist season, hospitals in places like the Canary Islands can become extremely busy. This can mean that local residents have to wait longer if they need to see a doctor or go to the hospital. The historic city of Venice in Italy faces unique challenges. Many people visit Venice each year, but the number of people living there is getting smaller and smaller. The residents who remain find it very difficult to live a normal life in the city center. Venice is very small and has narrow streets. When millions of visitors arrive, the streets, bridges, and public water transport are constantly crowded. Some people worry that Venice could become a ghost town. This is a place where only visitors are present, and the people who used to live there have left. In one part of the historic center, the last permanent resident left because their building was changed into a hotel. Living in Venice feels different now. Many local shops that people needed for everyday life are closing. Instead, new shops are opening that mainly sell things for tourists, like souvenirs. Overall, daily life becomes harder for the local population. Imagine trying to do simple things like buying food at the local market or taking your children to school when the streets and public spaces are always packed with people on holiday. Beaches and public buses can also be very full. It means that even basic, everyday activities take a long time and are not easy to do. The city feels completely full, not with the people who live there, but with temporary visitors. This constant crowding and pressure make living in these beautiful but popular places very hard for the people who call them home. 5. Money and jobs. Tourism is a very big and important part of life and work in Spain, Italy, and Portugal. It brings a lot of money to these countries every year. For example, in Spain, about 12% of all the money the whole country makes comes from tourism. This is a large amount. In some special places, like islands such as the Canary Islands, tourism is even more important for the economy. It can make maybe 1/3 of all the money there. This clearly shows how much these places depend on visitors coming. Tourism also creates many jobs for local people. Thousands and thousands of people in these countries work because of tourism. They find jobs in many places, working in busy hotels, in crowded restaurants serving meals, in shops selling souvenirs and other things, and driving taxis or buses for visitors. Many families earn their money and live their lives because of this work. But the people who are protesting in the streets have a different idea about these jobs. They say that many of these jobs are simply not good jobs. They feel that the work is often hard work and the pay is very low pay. Also, they say that the jobs are not secure. This means workers might not have a long contract or a steady job. They may only work for a few months during the busiest time for tourists, like in the summer, and then they might not have a job for the rest of the year. This situation makes planning for the future and simply living day to day very difficult for these workers and their families. The protesters believe that big companies and people who own many hotels or buildings for tourist apartments make a lot of money from tourism. They get very rich from all the visitors. But the people who do the hard work every single day, like the cleaning staff in hotels, the waiters in restaurants, or the people working in shops, do not get a fair share of this money. Their pay is often too low to live well, especially now that the cost of housing and other things is so high in tourist cities. Some workers who work in tourism agree with the protesters. They see clearly that the large amount of money coming from tourism helps the big companies and owners much, much more than it helps the local workers. They feel that the whole system is not fair. The money comes into the country and the cities, but it does not go down to the people who work hard every day to make the tourists' holidays possible. Many workers stay poor or find it very hard to pay for necessary things like a place to live or food for their family. This strong feeling that the economic benefits of tourism are not shared equally is a very big reason for the protests and the anger in the streets. People who live in these cities want tourism to help everyone, not just make big profits for large businesses and people who already have a lot of money. They want a fairer system for money and jobs. 6. A history of protests. The anger people feel about tourism is not something new. These problems have been growing for many years. There were protests about tourism in the past too. For example, in the cities of Barcelona and Venice, people protested in 2017 and 2018. In Barcelona, a group of young people took action. They did things like marking tourist rental bikes with paint. They wanted everyone to see that too much tourism was bad for their homes and the environment. They said that tourism was pushing local people out of their neighborhoods. In Venice, a beautiful city on the water, thousands of people also marched in the summer of 2017. About 2,000 people protested against the big cruise ships and new hotels. Venice has around 55,000 people living there, but about 20 million visitors come each year. People in Venice were worried their city was losing its real residents and would just become a place for tourists, like a ghost town. These protests in 2017 made important groups like UNESCO notice the problems. The city even thought about stopping new tourist places. Other places in Spain and Europe also had protests sometimes. Cities like San Sebastian started looking at ways to limit visitors. More recently, in the years 2024 and early 2025, people in the Canary Islands also protested. They marched and asked for tourism degrowth. This means they want fewer tourists. On one day, May the 18th, 2025, around 6,000 people in the Canary Islands marched. They held signs that said things like, "Canarias have a limit." They were unhappy about high rents and crowded places. This is because the number of tourists coming has been getting bigger and bigger almost every year. For example, in 2024, Spain had a record number of visitors, about 94 million people from other countries. Even after the time of the pandemic, more and more visitors came. This big increase in tourism has made the problems worse for the people who live in these places. The anger we see now has been building up for a very long time. It is the result of years of growing problems caused by too many visitors. 7. Finding an answer. What is the solution to these problems? It is a difficult question. For many people, tourism is very important. It brings money and jobs. Tourism companies say it helps many families. They say we cannot stop tourism. It is important for the economy in places like Spain, Italy, and Portugal. It creates millions of jobs and billions in tax money each year. They say limits could hurt many businesses and workers. But others say there must be limits. They say too much tourism hurts residents. It makes homes too expensive because many buildings become tourist flats. It makes daily life hard because streets, beaches, and buses are too full. Basic services like water can be stressed. They want cities to protect residents first. They want rules to fix the problems. They say big changes are needed now to stop cities from losing their local life. Cities and governments are thinking about solutions. One idea is to control homes for short rentals, like Airbnb. Spain's government ordered removing many illegal rentals from websites. Barcelona plans to stop 10,000 rental licenses by 2028. This could bring homes back for local people. Another idea is tourist taxes. Cities like Barcelona already have small taxes. Raising these taxes could help pay for city services or affordable homes for locals. To limit visitor numbers. They call this carrying capacity. It means a city or area can only hold a certain number of visitors comfortably. This is a strong idea, not easy to do everywhere. But cities like Venice are looking at ways to control numbers, like a day fee for visitors who do not stay overnight. Dubrovnik has also tried limiting entries to its old town. Governments also talk about building homes for locals. Spain and the European Union are planning money for new social housing, especially in islands where the problem is big. They want to make transport better. They want other ways for cities to make money, not just tourism. For example, some parts of Italy are investing EU money in farming or technology to create jobs outside tourism. Portugal is looking at housing laws in tourist areas and making it easier for workers like teachers to live there. They want to listen to locals more when making tourism plans. Officials like Spain's economy minister Carlos Cuerpo and Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez have said they hear the protests loudly. They know changes are needed to help their own people. Spain will have a person to help tourism and locals live together better. Venice's mayor highlighted new limits already placed on large cruise ships. Portugal's government promises a review of housing laws. The European Union is also planning for better tourism that helps residents, with a new strategy coming soon. There is no one easy answer. Different groups have different ideas. Some say rules must be slow to protect jobs. Others say strong steps are needed now to save cities. But the talk has started. The protests showed things must change. Cities must find tourism that helps visitors but also respects locals and protects daily life. Future tourism in these countries may be different, aiming for a better balance for everyone. 8. The future of travel. The protests across southern Europe sent a very clear message to the world. People living there wanted their voices heard. They said, "We welcome visitors, but we need respect." They asked for a new way to travel, one that works for everyone. This new way must find a balance between tourists and the people who call these places home. Governments in countries like Spain, Italy, and Portugal listened. They promised to look at the problems and make changes. The future of travel in this region needs to be different from the past. One major issue was housing. Many homes in cities and towns were turned into short-term rentals for tourists. This made it very hard for local people to find an affordable place to live. Protesters showed this was a huge problem. Now, cities like Barcelona are taking action. They plan to remove thousands of tourist rental licenses in the next few years. This aims to bring homes back for residents. Other governments are also looking at new rules for renting out apartments to visitors. Another problem was that cities felt too full. Streets, Beaches and buses were often overcrowded. This made daily life difficult for people living there. Some islands also faced issues like not having enough water because so many tourists used it. For the future, places must think about how many visitors they can manage. This is called carrying capacity. It means finding the right number of visitors so the city or area can still work well for its residents. New ideas are being discussed to help create a better future for travel. One idea is to have tourist taxes. Visitors would pay a little extra money. This money could be used by the city to improve things for residents, like public transport or parks. Some places are also thinking about setting limits on the number of visitors, especially in the busiest months or in the most popular areas. For example, Venice is planning a small fee for day visitors. Investing in better infrastructure is also important. This means building more affordable housing for local people and improving public services. Governments are saying they will put money into these projects. The kind of jobs tourism creates is another topic. Tourism provides jobs, but often they are low paid or not secure. People want tourism to create better jobs and for the money it brings to benefit local communities more directly. Spreading visitors out is another possibility. Some places are very crowded, while others are less visited. Encouraging tourists to explore different areas or visit during less busy times of the year could help reduce pressure on the most popular spots. Governments are now working on these ideas. They are talking with local people, businesses, and other groups. The goal is to build tourism that is sustainable. This means travel that respects the place, the culture, the environment, and the people who live there. The message from the protests was strong. Residents want their cities and towns to be places where they can live well. They want tourism to be a benefit, not a burden. The decisions made now will shape how people travel and live in Southern Europe for many years to come. Will the promises of change become real actions?